sunshines, and welcome back to the podcast. This is your session with me, Dr. Deborah Brown, and we are on season 4, episode 2 in our brain series. And the brain series is all about how you have to use your mind and your body together and understand how those things work in order to have the best functioning and the best life possible. So your body is here and your brain is running it. And are we connected to those things? And today we're going to talk about a huge part of that. This is one of my favorite things to talk about lately, and it's about your nervous system. And our nervous system is something that we have to understand as humans walking around in these bodies, because if we don't understand about it and we don't understand how to manage it appropriately, it will run us, and it will run us in ways that are not really good. In our first episode of this series, we talked about somatic healing and developing somatic intelligence. And what we were doing in that episode was learning about all of the listening that we have to do to our bodies. And this is sort of the next level, because we're going to be talking about all of the things that affect your nervous system and all of the things that you have to learn to listen to in order to regulate your nervous system. So I'm going to give you kind of 5 goals, 5 things that are really big goals for the whole series, but especially for this episode. So the first is shifting you away from habitual perception, habitual thoughts, and habitual actions. So we want to get you away from all the things you do automatically without thinking, just because you've been doing them for a long time. The next one is we want to move beyond familiar engagement with the world, meaning we engage with the world from a familiar perspective. And I want you looking at your perspective and saying, is the way I'm doing it the best way to do it? The next one is I want you to open doors to the discovery of the inner self. That sounds like a wonderful thing, doesn't it? So I want you to begin to listen to the signals that your body is telling you, to get to know yourself on the inside and what's happening on the inside. And not that that propels you in a negative way, but more that you can listen to what your body is telling you. And the last thing is, I want you to discover your own wisdom beyond logical thinking. We talked a lot about that in the first episode, about how thinking is how we try to solve everything. But there's an inner wisdom and an inner knowing in our bodies that has to do with feeling. So that's the stuff we're working on in this series. But in this episode, I think we're going to hit all of those. And a lot of the things that we do in our lives related to our nervous system, or the way we behave, or the way we feel, are related from the past, are related to the past, or come from the past. And it's very interesting. There are a lot of theories about psychological development, but all the theories pretty much agree that between birth and age 12 is where a lot of our development of our emotional senses comes from. A lot of the development of how our nervous system operates comes from. Because during that period, you're learning to trust, you're learning to love, you're learning to feel safe, you're learning how to express your emotions. And we have a lot of learning in those first 12 years that builds the foundation of how we operate the rest of our lives. So if during those 12 years, all of that wasn't delivered correctly to us, we spend a lot of our time learning how to do workarounds in life. And that's not just about trauma. It can be about trauma, but it can just be about having a household where people were not really emotionally intelligent, or you didn't learn how to feel your feelings. But what we're talking about here is the idea that you cannot go back and change that. We're addressing it, that it exists, but you cannot go back and change it. But all you can do now is make sure that you are adapting appropriately to your current circumstance, your current way of being, and not maybe what you were doing when you were 5. So we're going to talk about trauma just for a minute, and I want to address it right away, because this is not an episode about trauma entirely. I know that's heavy, and not a lot of us are in a place where we want to talk about that all the time. But I want to get it sort of out of the way in the beginning. And there's a really good voice when we talk about trauma and the body, and that's Bessel van der Kolk. Bessel van der Kolk is an author who wrote The Body Keeps Score. And we've talked about that book. We've even featured it in previous episodes as something I'd like you to read. And I don't think it has all the answers, but it certainly has answers about how our trauma is stored in our bodies. And this is a quote from that book. Trauma victims cannot recover until they become familiar with and befriend the sensations in their bodies. In order to change, people need to become aware of their sensations and the way that their bodies interact with the world around them. Physical self awareness is the first step in releasing the tyranny of the past. It's brilliant, right? That you can't just think your way out of the changes that you need to make or realize where you are now and just be all better. You have to make sure that your body has released the effect of those experiences. And understanding how our bodies work, to me, is the first step. And that's why this episode is so important, because we're going to talk about your nervous system. We're going to talk about how we think that emotions just come from our brain, but they don't. They manifest in our bodies. So, understanding the body and brain connection in how we heal is about understanding something called neuropeptides. And neuropeptides are the molecules that carry emotional signals. So think of it this way: your nervous system is helping to communicate what your brain is saying to your body. And that happens not just in your nervous system, but through your whole body. So it can be in your gut, it can be in your heart, it can be in your immune cells, in your skin, that these are all the places that are communicating emotion to you. So when you think that you can think your way through emotion, tell that to your heart that's beating too fast, right? We need to think and feel our way through emotions because that's what's happening inside of our body. Have you ever had an instance where you've recovered from a breakup and you see that person and immediately you have a reaction? Your heart starts beating, you're in wah-wah, and they're right there. Because your brain may be okay, your brain may be over that person, but your body sure remembers. So this is why we're talking about the nervous system, is that I need you to know how to address that when it happens, but also release it when you're recovering from something. So the body doesn't just receive emotion from your brain. It generates emotion with your brain. Your emotions are processed across your whole system, which is why we have panic attacks, why we have things like irritable bowel syndrome, why when you're stressed, your period can be late, right? All of these things are your body communicating emotion or holding emotion. And the idea is we're supposed to complete the end of a cycle and allow ourselves to feel so that we release. So for example, if you have laundry in the washing machine, you don't pull it out midway through and put it in the dryer, because then it's not going to be clean or it's not going to have the soap rinsed out. You haven't completed the cycle. So when you do the laundry, you let it complete the cycle, then you put it in the dryer. And it takes a little more work and a little more time. But our emotions are like that. We kind of stuff our emotions away. We don't necessarily always process our emotions. And when we do, we take them out too soon and we expect them, us, to be okay. So there's a lot of talk about processing emotions when you hear about therapy. And that's why therapy and talk therapy are so important, because people will say, oh, you're just talking. But not necessarily. You're processing something that happened to you, talking it through, and therefore helping your healing. And a lot of times what happens is we stuff things down and we don't process them. And they're going to pop up anyway. I always say it's like the closet. When you keep shoving stuff in your closet and pushing the door shut, eventually when you open the closet, it's all going to fall on you. That's kind of what your nervous system does. It keeps track of how much you're shoving in the closet. So the idea is that your body is this living record of your life and your experiences. Just as a scar tells you something about what's happened to you, your body holds everything you've ever been through. Every emotional injury is held just like a physical injury. And we have to make sure that we're releasing those and not carrying them. So the question becomes, why do we do that? Why does that even happen? And it's about suppressed emotion. Is many of us as children learn that if we speak up, that we risk losing love, that if we speak up, we take up too much space, that if we speak up, we could hurt someone's feelings. And we learn very quickly that emotions are not supposed to flow through us, they're supposed to be swallowed. And of course, there are times when you don't get to say everything you feel. Of course, there are times you have to behave in society, but in the places where we are loved, in the places where we are home, we learn to do that too. And it's a very dangerous exercise because the more that you do that, the more you will do that. And the more you will settle for less in your life because you're pretty used to being uncomfortable and swallowing emotions. So we have to stop abandoning ourselves in order to care for other people. And that's a challenge. You have to stop abandoning your own needs to take care of the emotional needs of others. I don't want to say that because it's going to hurt her feelings. So I'm just going to keep it inside. So when you've done that, you've abandoned your need to speak up. And there is a price for that. And we're going to get into that. And you don't need to fix all of this all at once. You don't have to go back into every trauma and everything that's ever wronged you and repair or process. Eventually, it's nice to do that, but it's not 100% necessary. What is necessary, and if you take nothing else, I want you to take this, is I want you to stop pretending that the feeling isn't there. Stop pushing down a feeling and stop pretending it doesn't exist and stop assuming that you're wrong for having a feeling. That's the first start. You have to listen to what your body's telling you and you have to react appropriately. And the more that you do that, the more you will do that and the less you'll carry. So let's start with the central nervous system, right? So I'm going to do a little bit of a biology lesson here. And people tend to shut off when they're thinking, oh, it's science. But look, your body you walk around with every day. Shouldn't you understand about how it works, even in the most basic fashion? And I always say that your body is your container. It's the container for all of the things about you. Now, I know when you go to buy a new container for your kitchen, when you buy your Tupperware, your Rubbermaid, you look at the container, you make sure it's the right container. You don't buy the wrong container and you put the right things in the container. Your body is the container for the most important thing of all, which is you and everything about you. Give it some attention. And we need to learn how to listen and how to take care of that container. And we need to have our nervous systems adjusted to being in at the right level of vigilance. And sometimes our nervous systems are too ratcheted up and we're too vigilant, and that fear will limit us. So, this is why I want you to understand it basically, and we'll come back to a little bit more about that. So, the nervous system is basically kind of connected to this neocortex in your brain. And the neocortex sort of controls motor processing, sensory processing. And the central nervous system is sort of the brain and the spinal cord and the beginnings of all of that. And then in addition to that, you have your peripheral nervous system. That's your motor and sensory nerves. Then you have the enteric nervous system, which is blood flow, mucosal secretions. Isn't that yummy? Endocrine and immune function. And the one that we're talking about today, the most important one for this conversation, is the autonomic nervous system. Now, this is the system that controls the things that go by themselves. The heart, right? These are sort of not under voluntary control. The heart, the stomach, the intestines, right? Also controls the glands and some of the other organs. But the autonomic nervous system is the one that reacts to stress. It's the one that reacts to emotion. And it's the one that we actually have more control over than we think we do until we are not connected to it. And then it will control us. So the autonomic nervous system is very simple. Two divisions, sympathetic and parasympathetic. That's not the part I need you to remember. What I need you to remember is that one of those, which is the sympathetic, is your fight or flight You hear a lot of talk about this out there about I'm in fight or flight. I'm going to give that a little more of a descriptor. Then you have your parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. So think of it, it's two halves of a whole. And the idea is we are supposed to exist in rest and digest. We are supposed to be living in that. So if you're home, you're resting, you're digesting. And if you're at work and you're comfortable and you feel safe, it's still rest and digest. The sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, is only supposed to be activated when we feel threatened or when something is different. Now, it can be something as simple as a good workout, can get your heart rate going, activate your sympathetic nervous system. But what's supposed to happen is your parasympathetic comes in, pulls you back down. So you get a little bit fight or flight, a little bit elevated, and then your backup comes in and pulls you back down to rest and digest. That's what's supposed to happen. We spike up, we spike down. Somebody jumps out at you and scares you and you go, oh, and then your parasympathetic comes in, pulls you back down. Problem with a lot of us is that we live in sympathetic. We live in fight or flight, which means that we are too escalated most of the time. It's sort of another definition for anxiety. If you feel anxious more than you do not, your nervous system is on high alert. Now, your brain starts it. Your brain starts with the rumination and the anxiety, but eventually your body will respond by being on high alert. This is where we get real jumpy when somebody comes near us. This is where our heart beats fast. This is where we might lose our breath. And we should not be running around like we're being chased by wild animals. That most of the time, the human state is actually rest and digest, unless we're hunting or exercising or challenging ourselves. And you want to have both of these. You do want to have your sympathetic nervous system activated. We don't want to be rest and digest all the time. But the idea is that you're able to move between these states and your body knows when to do that. And that's a big deal for a lot of patients that I've seen over the years, and even myself in the work I've had to do, is there was a lot of self-checking to say, where am I right now? Is there a reason why I'm escalated? And what can I do about it? And there are lots of strategies for how you take that down, and we're going to talk about some of them. But the idea is that when we get stuck in fight or flight, it's horrifying, right? You end up in survival mode. And nobody should have to live like a little rabbit being chased by a wolf, right? So I want you to think about yourself right now. And where are you existing? Are you in sympathetic, fight or flight? Are you in rest and digest, parasympathetic? How quickly and effectively do you move back and forth between those? Or do you need some work? And most of the people that I know need some work. So at the end of this, we're going to give you some strategies to sort of daily work on budging that into the right direction. But first skill in all of this that I need you to learn is that the most powerful skill in working with your nervous system is the ability to reset, the ability to find calm quickly after you've been agitated, after you've gone into that sympathetic. The most essential skill is the ability to have a quick reset. And adjusting to things that happen in your life without being stuck should be a major goal for all of us. I think every human on the earth should have this goal of I am not going to get stuck in the bad things that happen to me. I am going to realize my perspective and get myself back on track. And that's resilience. And resilience is something I studied in grad school, and it's a quality, unfortunately, that most people don't nurture. Resilience is the ability to get back up after you fall. And because sometimes we fall a lot, we stop getting up. That's what depression is. In a nutshell, is depression is where we say, why bother getting up? I'm just going to fall again. And that attitude brings you nothing. That condition brings you nothing. It only steals from you. So the fact of it is that a typical emotion, a primary emotion, anger, happiness, joy, they really only last about 90 seconds in your body. It arises and then it falls. And the idea is that most of us think that that's outrageous. When I'm angry for a while. Well, it's because the only real anger that you're feeling in these systems and in your brain is 90 seconds. Everything after that is the story that you are perpetuating. 90 seconds is real. The rest of it is the story that you carry. And I'll give you an example. Think of road rage, right? Road rage, somebody cuts you off, you get all angry, you give them the finger, you yell at them, then you go into work and you tell everybody about how they cut you off. That incident was seconds. That incident really had nothing to do with you. It had to do with that person's issue. But you carried that and brought about your own anger, brought about aggression, and brought about misery to yourself for something that didn't matter. And the Buddhists, who I love, have some great things to say about this. They would say that you send loving kindness to the car and you let them go. And my husband thinks that this is hysterical. But when something happens to us on the road, I say, well, they must have needed to get there a lot faster than we did. Or, maybe something's going on for them. But good luck. I hope they're okay. And most people do not have the urge to do that. And I've worked very hard to realize that I can't afford to carry anything that doesn't belong to me. I've got a lot going on. And I am not going to carry an emotion longer than 90 seconds if I don't have to. And some people will say, you're so calm and you're so relaxed about certain things. And it's that I just put them in the right priority and I don't give them more than the 90 seconds. And the idea is that emotion is like a wave, right? That our narration of that is like a wind that blows the wave higher. Now, a wave will eventually go up and crest and fall, and another wave comes. But if we keep blowing that wave higher, we eventually have a storm. And that storm is what destroys your nervous system and unbalances your nervous system. And I want you to think about when you feel stuck in an emotion. How much of that is a story that you're telling yourself about it? I think about grief. And grief is one of my least favorite things to work with as a therapist because you feel very insensitive telling someone that they have to move past something. It's very hard to do, but it is the truth. When we lose someone, they never leave us. They stay in us forever, and we have to integrate them into us now that they're gone. But we can't carry them every single minute of every day, or we are dying along with them. And I've had patients like this before where they'll carry grief for years and they have this sense of, well, I'm supposed to be sad and I can't be happy when they're not here anymore. And the truth of it is that we will destroy ourselves for an emotion that we are allowed to relieve ourselves of feeling. But people like to fuel emotions. Breakups are the worst. People will just go over and over in their mind for weeks about a breakup and about what could have been. And granted, these are painful things, but are you going to ruin more time in your life? A lot more time. And ruin your own nervous system over something that is done. So I'm not saying just get over it, but I'm saying make sure that your narrative is a healing narrative, not one that's stirring up a storm over and over again. So one of the ways that we do this is that we work in therapy on talking about the sensations. What does that emotion feel like for you? Where do you feel it? How does it affect your day? And how do we get rid of it? And that's when we start incorporating things like movement or connection or sensory exposure to get them to feel something else and not hang on to that story longer than they should. And we sometimes have to fight this every day. Is every day we might wake up and go, ugh, it's morning and I got to go to work and I got to do all these things. And if you stay in that emotion of dread, everything will feel hard. And we've talked about this before in previous episodes about how important that AM reset is. But this is your nervous system we're talking about here. So if you wake up and go, oh, it's going to be terrible, and dread is the primary emotion, you're allowed to hold on to it for your 90 seconds. You can sit there and be miserable. And then you say, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this. So you can hold on to the dread or you can create something else. And I can pretty much bet you would guess which one's going to give you a better day. So, how do we reset all these things? Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit, but there's sort of a word I want you to think about, and the word is calm. When's the last time you felt calm? Calm is a big deal. Calm is like content. Calm is the holy grail of everything I always try to have in my life. I want calm, content, and peace. These are the places that we're supposed to be baseline. We're not baseline happy, but calm, content, and at peace should be how we move through our lives. And everything that pulls you away from that, I want you to analyze and I want you to think about, because not not being overwhelmed or being calm means that we will react appropriately when things happen to us. So if somebody walks up to you and criticizes you and you're up to here, your nervous system is firing, what do? You spit right back at them. You go right back at them. And the idea is you maintain better control of your own body and of the situation when you don't react. And if you don't react, you will always look like the person more in control to the outside world. You will feel better and you won't be feeding into negativity that can poison you. So, how do we not react to things? It's a learned behavior. Just like road rage. I've treated people for specifically road rage before, and they just had to learn over and over again that if they didn't react, that they would be okay. And it was really uncomfortable in the beginning. They still wanted to react. But think about how many times you react to people when maybe it might feel better to pause and get some perspective. That's a very hard thing. But it really goes into what we're going to talk about next, which is how do you choose what to give your attention to? And to me, disrespect that doesn't mean anything to me is not something I would give my attention to. So think about, what in your day do you give attention to, the negative or the positive? Now, granted, the negative is always going to be there, but how much attention and mental space do we give it? So your ability to notice things is crucial here. So there's a line I want to read you, and I want you to really listen to this. The amount of good things in your life is relative to your ability to notice them. And I'm going to read it one more time. The amount of good things in your life is relative to your ability to notice them. The bad things always stick out. But how many times do you thank your feet for walking you to where you wanted to go? Your friend for being there when you needed to have lunch and talk to somebody? There are a lot of things that we take for granted and a lot of things that we don't notice because our brains are super hyper focused on keeping us safe and looking for negativity. That's why your nervous system is ratcheted up. You are perceiving threats everywhere, and they will always be there, but so will all of the amazing, lucky things that you have. So peace is staying steady. Peace is staying steady when uncertainty is present. Isn't there always uncertainty? Isn't there always the risk that something bad will happen? And being peaceful anyway feels like an act of rebellion, doesn't it? But I like that one. I like that one a lot. So your skill here is a fast reset and using a pause when you need to stay in control and keep your baseline calm. And there are a couple of ways to think about it. These are some really fun little questions I like, where you think, is it a tragedy or is it an inconvenience? Big difference. Have you ever been so fired up that everything feels like a tragedy and you wake up and you went, that wasn't really that bad? But what if in the moment you could sort that out? Is it a tragedy? Is it an inconvenience? Am I reacting or am I contemplating? Big one. Am I getting derailed by something very small? Am I letting one little thought ruin my day? And this one, which I love, is this thing bad or good, or is it just familiar or unfamiliar? Sometimes something bad that we perceive is just something unfamiliar. We have a lot of fear of the unknown. So if I ask you to learn about your nervous system and you go, ugh, ugh, that's bad. That's too much. I don't want all those words. But maybe it's just unfamiliar. And maybe the unfamiliar thing could be the thing that you might just need to receive, the gift that you might need to get. So what we think is bad or good might just be unfamiliar or familiar. And those are sort of some very basic tenets in how we work on our calm. And the other part of that is rest. The best antidote to reactiveness and to being out of whack and out of perspective is that most of us are tired. And rest is, we've said this before, rest is not a reward, rest is a requirement. And I'm not just talking about sleep, although sleep is foundational. I'm talking about how do you implement rest into your day. And everybody's, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that. Everybody's got 5 minutes. What is the 5-minute thing that you could do that would give you a rest? This is why I swear I think so many people smoked back in the day. I remember working in an office and everybody would say, oh, I'm going outside for a cigarette break. And for those 7 minutes, we could stand outside and we could be away from the desk and we kind of rested. So obviously, I do not want you taking cigarette breaks, but I do want you taking outdoor breaks. And I do want you taking a walk out of the situation and away from your desk. There was a study, it was so interesting. And it was where people were at their desks a lot. And what they did is they built into every hour a 3-minute break. And in that hour, they got up, and it was 3 to 5 minutes, I believe. I think it was minimum 3, maximum 5. They would get up for that time. And for that 5 minutes, they could walk around, they could go get a drink, and they had to do it every single hour. And what they found was not that productivity decreased, because you were technically 5 minutes less at your desk. Productivity increased greatly because of that expected rest away from the work. Now you say, oh, it's a walk. It's not a rest. A rest is a break. A rest is a break that brings you peace and calm and makes you feel better. So think about those rest times, and are you treating it like a reward? Oh, it's a reward to go get coffee. No, it's really part of what you need. And we have been taught that being unproductive is a sin. So when I first read that study, I went, oh gosh, you give everybody 5 minutes every hour to do nothing? That's unproductive. And what's unproductive? Oh, that's wrong. If you get paid for an hour, you should be working for an hour. Unproductive is not a sin. Unproductive is required. You need to go sit out in the woods next to a tree. You need to have unproductive time. And what we usually do with this is we spend it on social media and TV and things like that. And that's not really resting your brain. And that's not giving you something most of the time. So I need you to think about the fact that being unproductive should be a part of every day. This is how your nervous system will learn that you are safe and that you can rest and digest. How do you learn to do that if you've never practiced it? And I know a lot of people, we just plow through all day and then we go home and crash and go to bed. And you have to learn that rest can happen all through the day. So I'm going to give you a couple of little activities now that are going to give you some real strategies for how do you begin to recalibrate your nervous system. So the nervous system needs 5 things. So these are like the basic bare minimum, right? Your body needs food and water. You know these things. It needs food, water, sleep. But your nervous system has its own set of needs. And the first one is predictability. Your nervous system needs to know relatively that you are always going to take care of it, that you're going to rest when you need to, that you're going to drink when you're thirsty, and that you're going to eat when you're hungry. Your nervous system registers scarcity. So it needs predictability in the basic needs of the body being met. So right away, I'm telling you, prioritize. Prioritize your sleep, your food, your drinking. And for God's sake, go to the bathroom when you need to. Do not hold it. You're training your nervous system to do very bad things when you ignore the signals, the basic body signals that your body is sending you. It needs predictability and knowing that you will take care of it. Number two, it needs completion. If there's a threat or a point when it goes up, it needs to feel it go back down. It needs to know that that threat is over. So if something happens, your ability to restore your calm quickly tells your body that the threat is gone. A lot of us don't allow that, and the threat just perpetuates. It needs contact. It needs contact with other humans. Now, this is not just a warm and fuzzy, like you should have connection. This is an actual need of your nervous system. Co regulation of your nervous system happens with another person. You can regulate, you can do all these things, and you can definitely work on your nervous system. But the most supreme co regulation comes when another person can help you to feel regulated. Nervous systems sometimes can even heal best when you're in a relationship where you're working on it with the person you're with. They can help create a space for that co regulation. It requires orientation. Number four, orientation is deliberate, present moment engagement. We've talked a lot about this. Orientation means that I am sitting right here in this room with you. And the only thing that I need to feel is what I'm feeling while I'm doing this. I don't have to worry about a threat beyond the door. I know where I am and that I can be in rest and digest. Orientation. And the fifth is an interesting one. It's called exhale dominance. So when we think about breathing, most of us don't think about breathing. We're just kind of breathing. But the idea is that a strong inhale, but a powerful exhale is sending a message to your nervous system that you're safe. Isn't that so interesting? That's biological. This is a fact that your parasympathetic nervous system uses the exhale to let it know that it's safe. There's a physiological sigh where we do a long breath and a short breath in and a breath out. And it's a lot like what you do when you yawn and when you're crying. And it's the, right? Your body does that without thinking. When you're crying, you do the, sometimes when you yawn, you do that. That's automatic. And your body is calming itself down. So exhale dominance means that you're paying attention to how you're breathing and then pushing it all out of you because you're sending a physical signal to yourself that you're safe. Important, important. There's also a fun little method I like. It's called the nothing to respond to moment. And this is one I use a lot lately. You go somewhere where nobody can get to you and there's no sound as much as you can. And preferably you can lay flat. So maybe at home on your bed. And you stretch out and you say to yourself, right now, for the next 1 minute, 2 minute, 10 minutes, I have nothing to respond to. There is nothing I have to do. I don't have to look at my phone. I don't have to answer the door. I don't have to reply to anything. I don't have to do anything. And these nothing to respond to moments are what is actually going to teach you to connect to calm. What if you did that mid-work day? Don't you think that would help you feel better? I think I do it a lot at night. I'll say, it's over. I have nothing else I have to do but just be here and then enjoy being here. How does the bed feel? I have no pressure other than to feel what I'm feeling in my body. So have some nothing to respond to moments, and those nothing to respond to moments will break that survival mode where you're not just going and going and going. Just try it. I think that it's going to be uncomfortable at first, especially if you try to do it during the day, but I think those moments are crucial. How many times have you ever pulled in somewhere and you sat in your car for a minute? Sometimes that's what you're doing. In this 10 minutes, I'm early. Nobody knows I'm here. Everybody thinks I'm in the thing, and I have 10 minutes to breathe and I don't have to respond to anything. Use it. The car is a great place to do it because you can actually shut off everything in that moment. So there are also 6 things you can do before bedtime, and I really like these. And if you want, go back and listen and write them down and try to incorporate these because bedtime routines are as important as the morning routines. And when what we're talking about here is a very specific protocol to help you to release your nervous system. So these things, some of these sound familiar and some of these sound obvious, but it's the combination of these things and the consistency of doing these things that resets your nervous system. And I got these from Marina Wright. She has a wellness practice, and these are really good. I couldn't write them any better. And so there are 6 things. And what I would say is you write them in the front of a journal and you read them to yourself every night. And then you internalize them. Number 1, I did enough today. This one is really hard. I struggle with this one because there's always something else to do that I should have done. And I have this habit of putting about 5 more things on my to-do list than I can actually ever humanly do. And I have to be careful with that because it makes me feel like a failure or I didn't get enough done. So the ability to say, I did enough today. What a beautiful way to end the day. Number 2, I don't need to solve tomorrow, tonight. My favorite one, this one you can feel the weight lifting off of you. There is nothing I can do. I don't need to solve tomorrow, tonight. Number 3, my body is safe now. Now that one sounds crazy. You're not in prison, but you have to verbally say that sometimes for your nervous system to realize the obvious. Number 4, I can notice one thing I'm grateful for. Gratitude is one of those things that is about what we said before, looking for the thing that you just might accept or take for granted. I am very grateful for the fact that I was able to be out in the sun today. I am grateful for the fact that no bill collector called me today and stressed me out. It can be anything, but if you look hard enough, you will always find something to be grateful for. And whenever I think about gratitude, I think about one of my dear patients who's older, and she talks about how she is grateful that her heart beats every day. And it changed the way I thought about gratitude. Is she is so grateful every day for the thing that we completely take for granted for our whole lives. She said, I am grateful that my heart beat for me today. That's supreme gratitude. Number 5, my brain can rest now. My brain can rest now. Permission to stop thinking. And if you remember in the last somatic episode, we talked about you can put your hand to your forehead and say, slow down, right? That's what we're going to be doing all during the day. But at night, you're saying, my brain can rest now, which means you can let your brain wander wherever you want. You can let it wander to your trip to the Bahamas and what the waterfall looked like, or you can let it wander to your dream house or wander to a happy memory. But it can rest. It can do the fluffy things and not the heavy things. And number 6, my day is complete. It's over. Complete is that thing that we talked about your nervous system needs. It needs that completion. I am done. There is nothing more to do. Now, those 6 things sound obvious, but if you say those things to yourself every night, you are resetting your nervous system to the degree where maybe someday you won't have to say them anymore. And it's very powerful. And I really want you to go out on a limb and try that for me. And I want you to see if it feels any different. But I want you to give it a week. Give it a week and see. And I guarantee you it will lighten something for you, for sure. So we'll go to the morning real quick. And the morning is the place that we need those reminders too. And the morning is harder for me. The morning is a lot harder for me. And I think it's a lot harder for most people because of the way that a lot of us feel in the morning. We're tired. Our bodies might hurt. We're overwhelmed by the tasks of the day. And every time you start your day with that mindset, you are wearing down your nervous system in the first hour of your day. And you don't have that much to spare. You cannot do that. So one of my favorite ones for the morning that you can say is, show me how good today can get. That one sounds corny as hell, but it can be very effective. Show me what you got. Show me what this day can bring me. What can happen today? And what a marvelous thing. That's what a 3-year-old feels when they go to preschool. They walk in the door and they go, show me what's going to happen today. We're going to have circle time. We're going to go out and play recess. I'm going to hang out with my friends. We lost that somewhere. And most of us lost it decades ago. I need you to get that childlike wonder back of what's going to happen for me today. This is my life. This is my shot. There was a thing I saw where they talked about, like, what if 85-year-old you came back to where you are right now? How excited would they be to have your day? All the things that you're probably dreading, all the things you're fearing, 85-year-old you would love to be leaping and running and pushing and learning and all of those things. And she would gladly pop back into your shoes, maybe, rather than being 85-year-old her. So show me how good today can get. Another one, I can handle anything that comes my way today. Same thing you'd tell that little kid if they were nervous about going to preschool. You got this. You're going to have a great day. You can handle this, and I'm going to pick you up at 3 o'clock. It's going to be great. You can handle anything that comes your way. And the last one, I am grateful for the opportunity today. Think of my beautiful patient with her heart. She was grateful for the opportunity to be in that day. And none of that is ever promised to us. So our words create this energy that our body hears and our body feels. Your body hears what your mind says. So think about all of these things and saying these things. They're just words. But your words create your reality. Your words create your relationships. They create everything. And those words start in your brain, are heard by your body. And it all is a soup that reacts together. There are a lot of boogeymen in the world. There are a lot of potential threats. And the last thing I want you to do is to be your own boogeyman. I need you to make sure that you're your own biggest advocate and cheerleader and support person. And the last thing we're going to talk about is how do we apply this to relationships? Because this is all work I need you to do for yourself. But very often the relationships around us are what trigger a lot of this feeling of not being safe. They trigger this feeling of fight or flight. So there's some basic learning that I need to do with you about how to best handle relationships. Now, this is a little complex. This is a little deep, but this is something you can go back to and I want you to listen to again because it is a little intense. But it's sort of a little formula for how to learn to manage those stressors and relationships so that you don't abandon yourself. You don't squash the way you feel for fear of losing love, and that you don't make the other person's feelings more important than yours. We all have an equal seat at the table when it comes to what we're feeling. So if you can manage your relationships, that's where we can manage that reactiveness and keep our calm. Because a lot of times what disrupts us, sometimes it's ourselves, but very often it's our relationships. So I want you to feel safe in expressing in your relationship what's going on inside your body when that's appropriate. So there are 4 little actions, and I'm going to walk you through the actions, and then I'm going to walk you through an example of how we would apply them. So the first action, you're in a situation with someone and something uncomfortable happens. They say something. The first thing I need you to do is observe. Now, this is where I'm asking you to be an objective observer. Almost impossible in high emotion relationship situations, but not something you can't learn to do. Observing means what actually happened, not your judgment, not how you interpret it, what actually happened. The next thing is feeling, stopping before you react to notice what you're feeling in your body and notice where you're feeling it and label it, what it actually is. If it's not anger, it could be disappointment, it could be frustration, or you could just think it's anger. Dig deeper and label what that feeling is. Need, identify what you need from that person to feel better. not what you want them to do, but what you actually would need to feel better. They can't always do it. And the last, be able to request the action that you need, not a demand, but a request. Now, I'm going to walk you through a situation so you can apply all of these because in themselves, they sound a little abstract. So let's say the situation is that I'm going out with my partner to an event. And this is an event I am very excited about because this event is a place that I want people to meet my partner. This is an event where I want to be accompanied by someone because I'm a little nervous. This is an event that it's in a place that I'm not comfortable driving to. I don't love driving to Philly. This is an event where I have to walk to my car afterwards, and I'd rather have somebody with me. This is an event where I want to have a cocktail, but I don't want to drive. There are so many reasons why my partner needs to be a part of this event because I'll feel more secure and happier if he's able to go. So, what if that day he sends me a text and says, I'm not going? Oof, you felt that, right? All of a sudden, am I going to be safe? How am I going to walk to my car? Well, I guess I'm not going to drink. Oh, I really wanted him to meet my friend. Oh, I guess, and I'm spinning with a million different emotions. And my first instinct might be to go, that's fine. Or to scream, I can't believe you do this to me. And neither one of those is the right answer. And neither one of those makes you feel good. It's fine is denying all of those emotions that you just had. And the how dare you is reacting and punishing that person for their decision, which you don't really even understand. So the answer is in the calm, it's in the pause, it's in the thinking, it's in the nervous system. Are we going to respond from fight or flight and anger and wild emotion in those 90 seconds? Or are we going to rest with this for a minute and try to use it as a situation to understand why our needs aren't met and how we might get them met, and also accommodate for what that person might be feeling? Because the goal here is calm, but the goal is also expression of what you feel and not suppression, not automatically thinking that their decision is the right one for you, not automatically thinking that they are more important than you, but not automatically demonizing them and making them a person that's unsafe and a person you can't trust. See all that? That's hard. That's really hard. So if we take it through these four things, to observe what actually happened. I'm not going to interpret it. I'm not going to judge it. This person, my partner, made a decision that they were not going to go. They made that decision based on their own observation of the facts. And I have to understand what those facts are because I can't interpret it. I don't know. So I'm just observing the facts. The decision was made. It hurts me. I have to understand why it was made. And I also have to let them know that it hurt me. Feeling. Now that he texted me this, how do I feel about it? I'm panicking. I'm dreading. I'm obsessing. I want to react. How do I counteract all of that? I'll counteract all of that before I talk to him. Okay, I'm going to go take a deep breath. I'm going to go sit with this for a minute and realize that I'm going to be okay, whether I go or don't go, or whether I have to go and walk by myself. I'm going to be okay. What is this feeling and how do I address it in my body? I'm going to go take a walk before I text back. Need. What do you need in that situation? Not what do you need them to do. What do you need to feel okay? Well, if he's really not going to go, I need to make a decision. Am I going to go? So I need to sit with that for a little while. And what would I need to help me go? Well, I could call my friend Lamar because he's going to be there, and I could make sure that he's going to walk me to my car. I could see if he wants to drive together, right? So that need, your partner may not be the only one that can meet it in that moment. So your need doesn't have to be satisfied by demanding something of them. And the last thing is a request. What request are you going to make when you talk to your partner? Are you going to request that they do it anyway? Are you going to request that you just need to understand? Are you going to request that maybe next time they do it differently? All of those things. So my request would be, I understand if you don't want to go, that you're allowed to make that decision, but I'd really like to understand why you made that decision. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not yelling. I'm not screaming. Okay. Now I understand you're not feeling well. Okay. So, but I need to tell you how I felt when I received that text. So I'm addressing all of my own needs. This is the reaction you caused in me. I wish we hadn't done it that way. And this is what I need you to do to fix it. The only way that person can fix it is to explain themselves, right? You're not going to ask them to fix it. You're going to get the information you need so that you can fix it. So there's a lot in this, right? That's why I say it's really deep and really obtuse. But the idea is that if you're observing, if you're feeling, if you're expressing your need and you're making requests and identifying your need, you're looking at this whole picture from a more calm, receptive way. But I can tell you most of my life what I would have done. Okay, I just go anyway. And then all those feelings go down. And then the next time that person disappointed me, I'd add it to the pile. And then eventually I would resent him so much that we would have a dysfunctional relationship. Or what some people do is the opposite. They just fight all the time. And then they hold their ground and nobody really identifies what the core was. And the core was I was hurt and I needed to talk about it and I needed to understand. That's all there is. So think about that filter when you get into any kind of situation where your nervous system jacks up and you're just a person doing it to you. What is it that you can do in that situation to get yourself back down and know what the reality of the situation actually is and what's going to happen? Not everything is unsafe, but when you're used to seeing unsafe everywhere, you will see unsafe everywhere. And there's a very big danger to that because the smaller our world gets because we feel unsafe in our bodies, the less we will do. And the less that we do, the less we are exposed to all of the beautiful things that life has to offer. And I think about so many times in my life when I've done things and I've been sort of stepped on by other people about it. You want to start a business? Well, that's just crazy. I would never do that. Or I remember with some of the travel that I used to do is people would say, why would you want to go there? They don't even speak the language. Isn't that going to be dangerous? And I think of all of the things I would have missed in my life if I had listened to those fears and the way that those people listened to those fears. Is for those people, the fears were bigger than the desire to do it. And that's okay for them. They don't have to go to China. I get it. But for me, I didn't have those fears. I was more excited. So what I need for you is I need you to be more excited about your life than fearful. And your nervous system is the key to that because when your body is in fight or flight, you are by definition afraid and you are by definition escalated. So what I want you to think about is that early emotional imprints are deep. A lot of this stuff we're talking about is stuff that you learned to do a very long time ago. And the world will always touch those parts of you. You will always have your wounded parts poked by things. But the idea is when that happens, does it derail you? Does it wreck your connection to who you really are and to your body? And the idea is to know, and this is why we do it in therapy, we want to teach you where all those wounded parts are and how to narrate and process through them so that the next time somebody touches them, you don't jump so high. And we can change how our bodies hold the past and how they hold the future and how they hold the present. And a lot of what I talk to you about today is about how do you hold the present. And if we can observe our own bodies with more kindness, we learn to hold the fullness of our lives. That relationship thing that we just talked about was about a really good relationship. There's a My whole full life involves that relationship, and I want to hold that relationship. But if I react, I'm not allowing for the full experience of having a relationship. So remember that container, right? We're always expanding our container to hold more things. And we expand it through experience, not through fear. And when we have more experience and we have more expansion, we connect to the big thing we want, which is authenticity. The joy of becoming who you really are. And the closer that you get to authenticity, the closer you will attract the people that are the right people for you. You will attract the right job, the right schedule, the right activities. Because when you are connected to who you really are beyond the fear, beyond the fight or flight, you will attract things to you that are more like that part of you. So I want you to walk away from this, and I want you to think about fight or flight versus rest and digest, and go back and think about some of the things we talked about as strategies to mitigate those things. They both can happen, but they need to move back and forth. You're not supposed to stay in fight or flight. And in our next episodes, we're going to talk about some of the ways to sort of change our brains on a higher level through neuroplasticity, which is going to be very exciting. Don't get scared by the word. It's neuroscience, but it's your body, and you got to understand it. And then we're going to talk about how our brains and bodies are being affected by technology. So this is all sort of one thing flowing into the other, but the message is all the same, is that you are walking around in this body and this mind that I want you to understand and be better connected to. So until next time, my sunshines, I hope that you are taking care of yourselves and listening to your bodies. I'll see you next time. Bye.